Today we're diving into a really intense battle that's happening right now in Punjab, especially in this city of Lahore. And it's a fight for something most of us probably don't even think about: breathing clean air. But for millions of people, it's a daily dogfight against a toxic and pretty much invisible enemy.
Just look at this number for a second. 175. That's 175 micrograms per cubic meter. Now, I know that sounds super technical, but what it really represents is the current reality in Lahore. It's the concentration of a pollutant so tiny and so dangerous that it's reshaping lives and health on a massive scale. So what does a number like 175 actually mean for the people living there?
Well, this is where it gets really crazy. The World Health Organization says the safe limit for this stuff is just 5. Lahore's air? It's sitting at 175. That's more than 14 times the recommended limit. Can you even imagine living in a place where the air you breathe is considered severely unhealthy every single day? The health impacts are just devastating, from constant respiratory diseases to, even heart attacks.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this crisis, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the state of emergency in Lahore. Then, we're going to decode what this smog is actually made of. After that, we'll check out a flashy, high-tech solution and ask, is it for real? Then, we'll explore the real path forward, and finally, talk about what a collective commitment to clean air actually looks like.
So let's start with Lahore's unbreathable air. I mean, we're not just talking about a bit of bad weather here. This is a full-blown public health emergency, and it's happening in one of the biggest cities in the world, putting millions and millions of people at risk.
The enemy in this fight? It has a name we all know: smog. It's that thick, gross, toxic haze you see just hanging over cities. And it's basically a chemical cocktail, right? A mix of smoke and fog that gets supercharged by things like industrial emissions and car exhaust when they all cook together in the atmosphere. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty and decode this invisible enemy. Because if you're going to fight something like smog, you first have to understand what you're up against, especially the tiny particles that make it so incredibly dangerous.
So here's the thing. Not all air pollution is created equal. We've got to talk about something called particulate matter, or PM. Now you have PM10 particles, which are kinda coarse, think dust from construction sites, or pollen. But then you have PM2.5, and these are the particles that shocking 175 number was talking about. They're way, way smaller, and they come from burning stuff, like car engines and factory smokestacks. And trust me, that size difference is everything.
And this is exactly why PM2.5 particles are the real villain here. They are so microscopic that when you breathe them in, they don't just get stuck in your lungs. No, they can actually sneak past your body's natural defenses, get into your bloodstream, and from there, they can travel anywhere, damaging your heart, your brain, and other vital organs. This is what makes the air quality in Lahore not just unhealthy, but straight up deadly.
So, facing this massive crisis, what did the authorities do? They rolled out a really impressive high-tech solution: giant anti-smog water guns. I mean, on the surface, it looks like a powerful move, right? Firing these huge cannons of water into the sky to literally wash the pollution away. The science behind it seems pretty straightforward. The guns spray this super fine mist of water into the air. These tiny water droplets then latch onto the pollution particles, making them heavier. And once they're heavy enough, gravity does its thing and they just fall to the ground. It's basically like creating your own personal rainstorm to clean the air.
It definitely looks impressive, and the logic seems to check out. So, is this it? Is this the silver bullet Lahore has been waiting for?
Well, here's the catch. It turns out the water guns are actually pretty good at knocking down those bigger PM10 particles, the dust. They can reduce those by almost 70%. But then look at the bar for PM2.5, the most dangerous particles. The impact is minimal, barely anything. Why? Because those particles are just too small and too light for the water mist to grab onto effectively.
And because of this major flaw, environmental experts have a pretty harsh name for it. They call it smog theater. It's this big, dramatic performance of taking action. But it's an action that doesn't actually solve the core of the problem. It's all for show. It looks good, but it's not a real solution.
And then there's the cost. Get this, to run just 15 of these cannons for one day takes over 2.2 million liters of water. And this is in a city, Lahore, that is already facing major water shortages. It's just a completely unsustainable approach. So, if this big high-tech fix is really just a mirage, what's the real path forward? Well, the answer isn't some single shiny new invention.
It's a whole portfolio of sustainable, long-term strategies that actually attack the problem at its roots.
Yeah, the real solutions tackle the pollution at its source. We're talking about things like planting more urban forests that act like natural air filters, actually enforcing traffic limits to cut down on exhaust, and controlling all that dust from empty construction lots. It also means bigger picture stuff like switching to renewable energy, boosting public transport, like the new Punjab electric bus initiative, and improving how waste is managed, and maybe most importantly, raising public awareness. Each one of these things hits a root cause instead of just treating a symptom.
And all of this brings us to the main takeaway. This fight for clean air, it can't be won by the government alone or with this single piece of tech. It absolutely requires a collective commitment from, well, everyone.
Live long, healthy Pakistan. This phrase, which we saw in the source material, it stops being just a slogan and becomes this really urgent mission statement. It's a call to action that says clean air isn't just an environmental issue, it's a fundamental requirement for a healthy, thriving nation.
And so that leaves us with this final question to think about. What does a collective commitment to clean air really, truly look like? It's about government policy, sure. It's about what industries do. But it's also about our individual choices and community actions. It's a huge question that Lahore is struggling with today. And honestly, it's one that cities all over the world are going to have to answer, and soon. Thanks for watching.